Okay guys, we're going to be going over simplifying radicals today. I'm going to do the evens ones from your homework to kind of help if you struggled a little bit, and then the odd ones your teacher will probably grade. We're going to start off. In order to do this, you have to know your perfect squares, so I'm going to list them out right here. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared 9, 4 squared is 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, and 144. Those are the main ones we're going to be dealing with. So those are the ones I'm going to be using to figure this out. So basically you need to think, what number, which one of these, which perfect square can I divide by 45? Well, 45 divides by 9, and it's 9 times 5. Once I do that, what's the square root of 9? It's 3, and so I get the square root of 5. Alright, next one, number 72. So which one of these does 72 divide by? If you're not really sure, you can go through and just start dividing it. Like, I know it's not going to divide, but maybe it'll divide by 49. So I would try it. It doesn't work. So then I'm going to do 36, and it works. So 72 is 36 times 2. What's the square root of 36? It's 6. Square roots of 2 is my answer. For 56, which one of these numbers divides by 56? It might divide by 16. Nope, that one doesn't work. So 56 divided by 4 is 14. So I'm going to do 4 times 14. The square root of 4 is 2. Square roots of 14. 14 is only 7 and 2, so you know that doesn't divide by any of these, so that's how you know you're done. Thank you. For 8, 8 is 4 times 2. The square root of 4 is 2. $700. So that's a pretty big one, but I do know that 700 will be 100 times 7. What's the square root of 100? It's 10 square roots of 7. Also, I do want to mention, you can check yourself on here. If I put the square root of 700 in my calculator, I get 26 point that. If I put 10 to the square root of 7 in my calculator, I get the same thing. So I'm checking it. I know that I got it right. 450. That's going to be, I'm not sure what that one is. So let's see. 450 divided by, let's try 81. Nope. 450 divided by 144. Nope. 450 divided by 64. 450 divided by, I don't think it's 49. 450 divided by 25. 18. Oh, there's actually a bigger number, but we'll talk about that. So I get 25 times 18. Well, that gives me 5 square roots of 18. 5 square roots of 18. However, I know 18 can also be 9 times 2. What's the square root of 9? It's 3 square roots of 2. So what's 5 times 3? 15 to the square root of 2. So if you ever get to a situation where that number inside you can keep going, you need to keep going. And again, I can check it. 450, 15 square roots of 2, are they the same? I got it right. Oops. Next one. On the bottom, number 20. I know that it's a right triangle, so I'm going to have to do Pythagorean theorem. My C is always across from my right angle. So it's C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So I get X squared equals 3 squared plus square root of 10 squared. That's going to give me 9 plus, those cancel, 10. X squareds equal 19 to get X by itself. That's my answer. Number 22, I have the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. That gives me the square root of 4. And what's the square root of 4? 2. Alright, 24 is kind of the same thing. You could sit here and multiply it out, but when you multiply something by itself, it comes out of the radical. So this is just 957. Same thing here, the square root of anything squared, those cancel out, and you get 37. However, here, whenever you have this, if there's a number out front, it has to distribute to both of them. So then this becomes 3 squared times the square root of 2 squared. Well, what's 3 squared? 9. Those cancel out, and you get 2. What's 9 times 2? 18. The square root of 5 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 15. Those don't divide by any of one of my perfect squares, so that's my answer. Oops, I forgot to box this. 5 times 15, that gives you, why don't I know, 5 times 50 is 70? No, 75. However, I can keep going with 75 because 75 is 25 times 3. What's the square root of 25? I get 5 square roots of 3. For this one, if you have outside multiplies with outside, 2 times 3 is 6. Inside multiplies with inside, 2 times 3 is 6. And I can't do anything with that 6, so I'm done. Right here, outside multiplies with outside. 4 times 5 is 20. Inside multiplies with inside. 6 times 15, I think that's 90, but let me try. Yep. Now, 90, I can get 9 times 10. What's the square root of 9? That gives me 3 square roots of 10. And then I got to multiply. 20 times 3 is 60 square roots of 10. 10 is just 5 and 2, so it can't go anymore. Alright, 38. Remember, I got to distribute this squared to both of them. So I'm going to get 7x squared and the square root of 2x squared squared. Well, 7x squared is going to give me 49x squared, because that's still got to distribute. And then those just cancel out, so I get times 2x squared. 49 times 2 is 98, and I'll get x to the 4th. Number 40 is bonus. I'm not worried about you understanding it or getting it, but I will tell you that I get 2. That is 49 times 2. Right here, I have x to the 4th. That's like saying x squared times x squared. And I have y to the 5th. That's y squared times y squared times y. I have this 2 out front. I'm going to keep out front. 49, the square root of 49 is 7. That 2 is going to stay there. X squared, the square root of x squared, don't you agree that's just x because they cancel out? So this is going to come out and become an x. So is that one. I'm going to have 2 x's, so I can just put x squared. The y is going to come out and become just y, and so is that one, so I can do y squared. But I still have this little y right here. He's going to stay inside. Well, what's 2 times 7? 14 x squared y squared to the square root of 2y. Now again, you're not going to need to know this for your test. This is actually more something you're going to learn in Algebra 2, but it's still good to know if you want to. But if you don't know or you're really confused, don't worry about number 40. That is all simplifying and multiplying radicals. Today we learned about dividing. So I'm going to go over the evens on this one as well and explain some of them. Number 12. So this is tonight, Thursday night's homework. The square root of 89 over the square root of 89. You should have did this one in class, actually. Anything divided by itself is just 1. There's your answer. The square root of 27 over the square root of 3. They're both inside of the parentheses. So when I divide that, I get the square root of 9. And what's the square root of 9? It's just 3. The square root of 54 over 3. They're both inside. So 54 divided by 3 is the square root of 18. However, that's not my answer because I can keep going. 18 is 9 times 2. What's the square root of 9? 3 square roots of 2. Remember learning this? Alright, 18. I have 45 over 3. I cannot divide these. People make a mistake. They start dividing these, but this is outside, this is inside. So I'm going to have to simplify this. 45 is 9 times 5, and then we just leave that 3. What's the square root of 9? 3. But that's not my answer because I can cancel those out. So my answer is just the square root of 5. That's dividing. Now we're going to do something called rationalizing. Rationalizing is when you have a radical on the denominator. Notice all of these, I either had whole numbers or radicals up top. But for 20, I can't divide them because that one's outside and that one's inside. But I cannot have a radical on the bottom. So I have to rationalize, which means you have to multiply the bottom by square root of 3. And what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. I cannot multiply these because this one's outside and this one's inside. So I'm going to get 3 square roots of 3. And then the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, that gives me the square root of 9. But what's the square root of 9? 3. Now this would be my answer, but those can reduce, so my answer is just the square root of 3. Number 22, same thing. This one's outside, that one's inside. It's in the bottom, so I have to rationalize. I got to get rid of it. And whatever it is down here, it's just going to come out. That's how it'll always work. Again, I can't multiply these because this one's outside, that one's inside, so I'm just going to leave it. Oh, that's my answer. I can't reduce those because 4 and 3 don't reduce. 24. Outside, inside, it's on the bottom. I have to rationalize. Outside, inside, so I'm just going to connect them. And remember, when I rationalize, it just comes out. Again, I can't reduce these. I can't divide these because that's inside, that's outside. I just leave it. That's my answer. Ooh, 26 is tricky. For 26, so you can either, so these two don't reduce, and I have a thing on the bottom, a radical on the bottom. You could either simplify first, then rationalize, or rationalize first. It doesn't matter. I'm going to show you both. So you see the radical on the bottom? You're going to want to do that. And then you end up getting 16 because it's outside and inside over. We even had a number out front. We know that when we rationalize, we get the number outside. But I can't forget about that 5. I'm going to multiply that. That's going to give me 16 square roots of 32 over 160. Now there's two things here. Number one, I can reduce these. But also, I have this 32. I'm going to deal with that first. 32 is 16 times 2. Well, what's the square root of 16? It's 4. And then square root of 2. This one's a long one. 16 times 4 is 64. Square roots of 2 over 160. And then you can just put this in the calculator or you can figure it out. But if I do alpha y equals 64 over 160 is 2 over 5. And don't forget to keep that square root of 2 up top. So 2 square roots of 2 over 5 is your answer. In my opinion, that was the more difficult way. The easier way to do this one, in my opinion, is to simplify this first. If you know that is 16 times 2, can't you do 16 over 5? What's the square root of 16? 4 square roots of 2. Then you get 16 over 20 square roots of 2. I can reduce these by dividing by 4. So I get 4 over 5 square roots of 2. And then rationalizing. Square root of 2, square root of 2. So I get 4 square roots of 2 over, that ends up becoming 5 times 2. Well, those reduce. So I end up getting 2 square roots of 2 over 5. Again, this was a super complicated one. If you got a little lost on either parts of these, that's okay. But eventually you are going to be expected to do that. Also, if I'm going too fast, pause the video at any time. Go back, look at it, rewatch it. Last two, it's squared. I'm going to need to distribute it to everything, so it's going to end up being 3 squared times the square root of 28 squared over the square root of 21 squared. Well, 3 squared is 9. Those cancel, so I just get 28 over those cancel 21. Put that in your calculator. 9 times 28 divided by 21. Bam. You do not have to do 29, 30, and 31. Those are bonus and extra. I'm not going to go over that because I don't want to confuse some of you. But if you have any questions about simplifying, dividing, or multiplying radicals, you need to come to tutoring. Hope this helps. Thank you.